So this is an Excel spreadsheet. So the first thing to do after you've taken your your barking your bank statements. So you download a 3 month or 6 month bank statement, and you're basically gonna have a new sheet. You're gonna do all those expenses that are on the bank statements one by one, according to what you spent on. So it's actually transaction by transaction. So normally I have the bank statement opened up either on my phone or separately on the other half of the screen, and then I have this Excel document up here, and then normally I'll write the month here. So the month that's past. So you can never do your current month because you won't have the total expenses, so the current month hasn't finished. So normally do the previous month. So normally just rename this. So we're doing September here, for example. So then you just have a look at your bank statement. So your expenses, you go to whatever the first expense is. So it has to be from salary to salary. It works best for people who get paid only once a month. But if not, then that's also fine. Just look at the expenses you spend on month to month. So if you get paid every 2 weeks, for example, then you can take it from the you can take it monthly. So from the salary you get in the first week of the month until the first week of the following month. You just look at your expenses. So you can even put that income together. When you consider how much do you get, you can say I get so much in a month, even though I get paid every 2 weeks. But if you get 10K in the first week and another 10K in the third week, then that's 20K monthly income. Just to simplify things for 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 all these calculations. So let's say on the first or just after you get your salary, you first spend on rent, for example. So that's a common thing for us. So then say rent is 5,000, and then after that you put petrol. Say petrol is 500, and then you'll buy some airtime, say for 55 rand, or let's say whatever, 29 rand for the com. Then whatever, you'll get a drink at the garage. So normally for me, um, whatever I buy as food, whether it's takeaway or it's actual groceries, or it's just a snack from the garage, I put it under groceries. So even if you spend whatever 15 rand on a drink, then I put it under groceries. Um, you'll see that normally when you spend on some things like airtime, there will always be a bank charge. So make space for those bank charges, whether it's 1 rand or whatever. I think for airtime it's 1 rand 20. So you write your 1.2 there. Rent is only once a month, so this column is always going to be um, just one item, and this row, I mean, not column. Then let's say after 2 weeks you need to put petrol again. When I put petrol, I always put full tank, so it'll be another 500. Then yeah, a lot of us keep buying airtime on the app, so there'll be another 12 rand there, another 55 rand there. So this is how you then put all your stuff. Another 12 rand. Sometimes you'll buy data. Okay. Then there will be a day where you buy all your groceries, or the bulk of your groceries, because you can never fully buy for the whole month. Um, and then there'll be bread at some point, and then whatever else that you buy, and you must always put the exact amount. So this is going down your bank statement, transaction by transaction, from top to bottom, from the day your salary comes in and down until the day your next salary comes in at the end of the month or at the beginning of the of the following month. So that goes for everything. Even if you send an e-wallet to someone, write their name here. So whoever, Patrick, you send Patrick an e-wallet, Patrick Arkivupa, 500 or 200 rand in the middle of the month. And then on the 25th he asks you for another 150, and then month end he'll ask you for another 600, whatever, you know. Elsa, another cousin or sibling or whoever, asks you for money or asks you for airtime or whatever. So you put them here, and every time you do all these random e-wallets and other transactions, then there will be bank charges. Sometimes it's a 10 rand, sometimes it's a 15 rand. Okay, so you put all of that, right? And then in the end you'll have to, well, there's things like electricity. Okay, so you'll see not everyone's bank statements will look the same, right? So then at the end of the month you see that it'll finish, and then you need to top up a bit. Okay, they won't all look the same. We'll all have different expenses. Some of us have kids and so on and so forth. So then at the end you just put a sum, and there's a formula for the sum here. You just say sum, you open bracket, and then you click the first, and then you put a colon, and then you click the last one here, and then you close bracket, and then press enter, right? And then you can take this and drag it down, and it's basically going to do the same formula for all of them. Okay, so that's your your sum there, and then at the bottom you're going to have your total, and then total is going to be another sum, and open bracket, and then you click there and colon, click the last one and close bracket and enter. Okay, so that's basically your expenses for the month, right? And then from that you can actually see how much you spend on everything as an accumulation, and then you can say to yourself that well, out of these expenses some of them are fixed, so rent, you can't cut down on rent, it's fixed. You can have a look at, so now you have a look at what you can cut down on. So let's say you drive around too much, something that's unrelated to work and whatever, you just drive around to see friends, you travel a lot, and you want to cut down on that. You can say, okay, I spend a bit too much on petrol, maybe I should do less trips that are unplanned to random places, and maybe I can probably spend like 800 on petrol. Airtime, maybe I spend too much on airtime, or I spend so much of an amount that actually if I had a contract I'll be spending less, or most of the time I actually buy data, and if I change from physically buying data every time I needed to getting a data contract like Rain, for example, that has unlimited for 479, then I would spend less. I mean, when I did this initially, my airtime, there'll be airtime and data put together, was around 2,500, so that was too much. Then I changed to Rain, and that was cut down significantly. You look at groceries, and say, no, I think I spend too much on groceries, but most of the time what I spend on is takeaways and random snacks at the garage. So I should cut down on that and focus more on just spending on my overall groceries, and then make lunch rather than buying takeaways. Um, there's a lot of bank charges, for example. So instead of sending a lot of random e-wallets, or instead of when I make payments somewhere, instead of doing it as an immediate payment, just rather make it as a normal payment, uh, then I'll have less bank charges. And also, when you buy, every time you buy airtime on the app, there is a bank charge with it. So it's actually cheaper to have one payment for like a contract, or whether it's a data contract or a cell phone contract, than buying airtime many times during the month. You can look at electricity and say, no, I spend too much on electricity, or I thought I only need 500 for electricity, but realistically 500 is not enough, so I should actually budget for 600 rand of electricity. So the lovely thing about doing this process is that when we say to people make a budget, they take a blank page and then they start writing what they wish they would be spending on each thing, rather than looking at their bank statement and looking realistically what they already spend on each month. So this way you're more realistic, and then you can see that this is what I spend on, and this is what I'd love to cut down on. So at the end of the day, you then make a budget. So I'm going to open a new tab for the budget here. So then in your budget, there'll be two sections. So there'll be debit orders, and then there will be your credit card. So in the debit orders, it's basically what's in the check card, right? So debit orders would be things that get paid by debit order, things like car payments, thing. So let's do car payment, things like car insurance, medical aid, car insurance, medical aid, life insurance, things like that, right? And then there will be like a bank charge for having the bank account. Like most of them are around 200 and 250 or 215. So bank, I call it bank fee. Then other things that go as debit orders will be different for all of us, right? Then in the credit card will be the actual expenses, so things like groceries, things like electricity, things like petrol. Okay, if your rent goes as a debit order, you write it here. If you pay your rent physically, then you write it here. Okay, so the reason that we put stuff that we spend on physically in credit card is because when you spend using your credit card, you actually get more points. So this is all about the point system. In F&B, it's is it e-bucks, and then in Standard Bank, that's the one I use. It's your account rewards. So you'll find that mostly with these reward systems, if you use credit card, you get double the points than using check card. So the idea is when your salary comes in, it'll come into your check account that's here. And then what you do is that you take you only leave the debit order money in this check account, and then all your spending money you send it to the credit card, and then your disposable income, you then send it to well, you already know where you're going to invest your money, so then you send it to the investments, and then the other account is going to be your it's going to be your emergency fund. Okay, so most of the time when people do their expenses, they actually realize at the end of the day that they are spending more than their income. So by cutting down here, you are then at the end of the day to say, able to say, my income is this much. So let's say it's 10,000 rand, for example. And then my expenses used to be 9,000, but let's say I've been able to cut down my expenses to like 6,000, right? And then now my disposable income becomes 4,000. And in your disposable income, yes, you have to invest your money, but you also have to use it to build your emergency fund. So emergency fund doesn't have to be built very quickly, but you do have to send something to your emergency fund until you get 3 to 6 months of your expenses in that emergency fund. So if expenses are 6,000, then you times that by 3, so you need to have at least 18,000 in your emergency fund. Okay, and then after that you can put the rest of your disposable income into your investments. So as I always say, your investments have to beat inflation. So inflation is around 4.5 to 5% at the moment. So it doesn't matter where you put your money for investments, but it has to have a return of more than, I say, more than 5%. Whether that is in the stock market, whether it's crypto, whatever it is, whether it's livestock, blueberries, solar panels, whatever it is, you have to have a return, an annual return of more than 5%, so that whatever you could afford with that money this year, you can still afford that same item next year and still have some money on top of that. So that's what you'll be doing with your disposable income. So you can decide, for example, that with your disposable income, 2,000 is going to go to the emergency fund, and another 2,000 is going to go into your investments, right? So investments is a whole different talk. There are different people who believe different things. Other people would look at the highest return and put all their money in that. Other people believe in diversity, meaning that some of their money is going to go into very high returns. Other money is going to go in places that have lower returns but more stability, because generally places with high returns have a lot of volatility, so they go up and down, especially according to what's happening in politics. For example, in the US right now, what's happening in COVID around the world. So they tend to go up and down, but if you catch it really well, then you're gonna make big returns. And then other people only believe, putting their money in the bank. But of course, go to the information about bank accounts and investment accounts, which I don't call them investment accounts, I call them donation accounts, because you donate that money to the bank and the returns are quite low. They don't beat inflation, but where the bank does invest your money, it does beat inflation. But when it comes back, they only give you the 1 point whatever percent that they promised you. So going back to the budget, now you know that you must have your check account here, then your credit card, then you must have, let's say you're gonna have your emergency fund here, and then let's do that, and then you'll have your investments here. Okay, so then I'm not gonna put amounts here, but you're gonna put your own amounts, and then you're gonna have a total, and then you're also gonna have a total here. So meaning that when money comes in, it's gonna come in here, and then you only leave the debit order money here, you move everything else to the credit card, and then so meaning that after the first or the second, when all your debit orders have gone, you should have almost nothing left in the check card. And then the credit card, you're going to be swiping the exact amount that you calculated that you're going to have for budgeted for your groceries and your petrol and whatever else after you've cut down from these amounts. Okay, you're gonna have it exactly in your budget, so it's gonna be written here. Okay, if you think you can't spend any less on groceries, it has to be 1278, then this is gonna be 1278. If you think that is a bit too much, you're gonna try to change your habits and whatever, then this is gonna change down to 900, for example. Okay, so that's exactly the amount you put here. Okay, these ones are never going to change, medical aid, unless you feel like you can cut down from an expensive medical aid to a cheaper one. Same thing for life insurance, same thing for car insurance. Like I had to change from an expensive to a cheaper car insurance. Then you can put the cheaper amounts here, so that you can actually free up a bit more of your disposable income. That's going to help you grow your money, and it's going to help you build your emergency fund. Okay, so you put all your amounts here. So you swipe with this card, you gain your points. The point system, it depends on how often you use it. You're gonna have a look at your bank's point system, go on their website. But it does normally take a couple of months to gain those points. But at the end of the day, you can then use those points to buy more groceries, to swipe for more petrol. For example, I always use Caltex, and then groceries, I have to use either Checkers or Pick and Pay. And when I accumulate my points, I then, for that month, I save a bit here, and then I can put the money that I've saved into emergency fund or investments. So this is exactly how you do it. And the nice thing about this is, number one, it's tough, it's painful, and it exposes your spending habits, but it's very rewarding and fulfilling to actually see what's happening with your money. And most of the time, it's not that we are bad with money, but because we don't do this, we actually can't see exactly where our money is going. So we just swipe and swipe and swipe and swipe, and it all accumulates. 30 days in a month is a lot, and you don't really keep track in your mind of, oh, I spent this much yesterday, I spent this much last week. So this actually exposes our spending, and then we're able to actually have a look at what we're spending on, and we can take control of our spending, and we can maximize our income, so that we can grow our wealth. And that's where the investments are going to be important. So in terms of growing your wealth, the more money you put in your investments that beats inflation, the better. Okay, so that's the long and short of it. So with me, for example, there are certain things I've cut down on, so that I'll actually just use from my emergency fund should those kind of events happen. One example is, I don't have tire insurance. So if I get a flat tire, yes, I'll be towed. I'll call my car insurance, and they will tow me to the nearest wherever. But in terms of buying that new tire, I'll be using it from my emergency fund rather than paying monthly for tire insurance, for example. In terms of my medical aid, I don't have a full medical aid. I just have hospital plan. So if I'm ever in like a car accident or anything that's major, I can get admitted into a private hospital under my hospital plan. But if I have a cough or I have stomach pains or whatever, something minor, I'll just go to the government hospital and get treated there. So it's things like that. I mean, everyone has their own thing. And then if you have a fixed budget that you know exactly how much is going where, then it also limits you from spending on random things, random trips, spoiling or saying you're spoiling yourself because you work so hard. So things like that, it really limits you from wasting money like that. But it's not to say that you're not allowed to spoil yourself or spend on yourself, but it just means that you must budget for it in advance. For example, if you want to make a trip to Durban or Cape Town or Sun City or whatever, you already know how much money you get every month. Then you just go online and you look at how much will that trip cost in terms of accommodation, in terms of petrol, toll gates, and then you put it up in a listing and you say, okay, this is the total. Am I going alone? Okay, this means I'm gonna have to pay all this money by myself. Am I going with friends? Then you take that total and you divide it by 4 or 3 or whatever. Then you know exactly next month or 2 months from now, this is how much I'll have to spend on my trip. Then you can say, okay, can I cut down on anything in my budget, or is my budget already tight? If it's already tight, then you look at your disposable income and say, for that month, in my disposable income, I'm going to sacrifice money that goes into one of my investments, or I'm going to sacrifice money that goes into emergency fund. Let's say I need 2,000 for that trip, so I'm gonna, for the month of November or for the month of December, I'm gonna take 2,000 rand, and then I'm gonna send it to my I'm gonna keep it aside for my trip. Okay, and then when December comes or January comes, then that money comes, or your budget goes back to normal, and you use your disposable income as you normally do. So it's not to say that if you're on a tight budget and a budget that you are following up, that you never supposed to do nice things. It just means that you must always budget for those nice things and know exactly how much it costs, so you know exactly where your money is going. And that's how you keep control of your money, and you don't have these random times on the 25th where your money's finished and you don't know what you spent it on. So I think this is very important, money management, especially when you have a hobby, like you're into cars or you're into whatever it is, that you have to spend on. That when you spend on those nice things, you can actually put money aside, and you're not having your hobby actually clean out your money without being aware of where your money is coming from and where your money is going, and without saving up for these rainy days. Because it's very important, to live your life and enjoy it, yes, but at the end of the day, you must keep yourself financially protected, especially if you have dependents. If you're looking after a family, looking after your kids, or you have something very important that you're paying for on the side, building a house and whatever. You can't let your habits and the things that make you happy actually make you put financial strain on you just because you failed to plan and make a proper budget. Yeah, away.